The dream drive in Formula One is to go to Ferrari. Now, we are no stranger to this. Ferrari are the most successful team in Formula One, and they've been here since the very first season in 1950. Ask any racing driver what their dream drive is, it'll be Ferrari. It doesn't matter what team they're at. They could be at Red Bull, they could be at Williams, they could be at Haas, they could be even not even in Formula One. It's like, where do you want to be in your career? The one place you want to go to. The answer will always be Ferrari. But that's because of the history. That's because it's Ferrari. It's the prancing horse. It's the cherry red Ferrari almost, but a very iconic colour in racing. But lately, things haven't been going their way. They haven't had a championship since 2007, a driver's champion anyway, and they haven't won the constructors since 2008. It's been like 12, 13 years since Ferrari have tasted success. They've had wins since then, of course they have. They had Fernando Alonso, he won a fair few races, as has current driver and currently departing driver Sebastian Vettel. They've all tasted a little bit of success, almost achieved it, but they came up empty essentially, end of the season without a championship. And Ferrari have started off 2020, as we all know, a very poor, slow, what is going on, what the hell, we're asking more questions about Ferrari, and we are doubting that whether, that they can actually become champions again very, very soon. And this week was actually rather interesting, because Ferrari came out, the bosses at Ferrari, a quite honest interview I would say, and basically said, don't expect any wins this season or next season. So quite bold from Ferrari to come out and say, don't expect nothing from us. So that obviously, writes off this season, and obviously it's going to write off next season. But next season, you've got a new driver going to Ferrari. Current McLaren driver, Carlos Sainz, the Chile man, is going to the Tifosi next season, replacing Sebastian Vettel. So there's a lot of eyes going to be on Carlos Sainz next season. How is he going to do in the Ferrari at a top team alongside Charles Leclerc? How is that partnership going to pan out? Is it going to blossom? Is it going to go sour? As we've seen teammate partnerships go in the past. How is it going to go? And now it's raised a lot of questions, and the big question really now is, and that's something we're going to be debating today, is Carlos Sainz regretting going to Ferrari? Because you would think going to a team like Ferrari, yeah, that's really good, that's brilliant. But currently at the moment, at the same time, you're going, oh, is it right for his career to at this moment in time to go to Ferrari? Has he just made a big mistake? Yeah, it's a bit of there's a lot to digest, a lot to discuss. Lyle, what's your first initial thoughts when you think of is Carlos Sainz regretting that move? Because surely, even though he's saying, in the media, everything's fine, I've got no regrets whatsoever, let's see how the time moves on. But surely he's looking at that going, he must be thinking something in his head, in the back of his mind, surely to go, oh dear, have I made the right choice?
Well, firstly, like Sebastian Vettel said in the past, everyone's got to answer that call to Ferrari whenever it comes. It's a Scarlet Red Ferrari, as you say, it's the oldest team in Formula One. You've got to go to the team. It's always a thing that you always aspire to get to. Again, like you were saying there about drivers, either in Formula 1, Formula 2, Formula 3, it's always to get to Ferrari. Really, it's to climb the mountain. And of course, drivers want success, but I would say you never know who's going to be dominating. For example, 10 years ago, we would never have said Mercedes would be dominating, so you probably wouldn't want to go there. It would always be Ferrari. That is the name, that is the brand. It's the team you all want to be in. And I think as soon as Carlos's name was floating around to be signed at the team, alongside Charles Leclerc, and of course Sebastian Vettel would be vacating, it would always be a very exciting thing for him. His career, of course, has been really quite rapidly in the last year or so taken off. When he went to Renault, we weren't sure what he was going to do. He wasn't treated as fairly in Toro Rosso. Favoured Max Verstappen over himself. Then he went to Renault. It wasn't a great start for him. Then McLaren was a bit more of a redemption. And we started going through the season and realising that he was a good driver. And then, of course, he got the podium. First podium for McLaren in about 5 years. And then we knew that he was really, really good. Moving to Ferrari is great for his career, obviously emulating Fernando Alonso, becoming the second Spaniard to go there. And of course, I say his hero, Fernando Alonso. It's definitely good for Carlos to go there. And I don't think anything would really, change that opinion. Even if Ferrari were a midfield team, I think Carlos will be thinking it'll still be good to go there. Not for maybe the progression I'm looking for. Of course, it'll be better than what I'm getting with McLaren right now, because McLaren's a midfield team, and even though they're fighting, even though they had plans to fight even before the season, it wasn't obviously going to be as good as Ferrari. But the name of going to the team is obviously going to be good for Carlos. I think seeing the results from Ferrari aren't very good. Carlos will be thinking it's not maybe the move that I thought it would be, but he's still excited. I think the thing that's getting him down is just the progress that McLaren's making. Every driver wants to be part of a movement. A little bit like what Fernando did when he went to McLaren Honda. Everyone wants to be part of this movement, this kind of Lewis Hamilton-esque with the team. Of course, Lewis being the most successful driver of being kind of in that movement. He went to Mercedes really when they weren't anything special. Had one season of really progress, I would say, in 2013, even though it was Red Bull, it was progress at Mercedes. Then, of course, V6s in 2014 hit, and Lewis and Mercedes were dominating. Everyone wanted that Lewis move, and Daniel Ricciardo comes to mind as a person who was chasing that quite recently. Of course, going from Red Bull racing a top field team, going to Renault, his dream was to be part of that Renault movement, and that didn't happen. And again, I think Carlos Sainz would love to be part of that McLaren movement, and even the contribution that he made last year, getting them on the podium would have been great. He'll look back and think that's an amazing achievement, probably definitely the highlight of his career, first podium in Formula One. But something that I think even if he gets podium with Ferrari in the future, he'll look back and think that was very special because I was part of a movement to help McLaren in the future. Obviously, something that they've been struggling, as I say, 5 years without a podium before he came along. I think the thing is now, after the first 3 races, McLaren have definitely been a very strong team. I think he got P3 in Styria in qualifying, and of course Lando got P3 in Austria in the real race, back-to-back fastest laps, which hasn't happened since 2011, obviously with Jenson Button and Lewis Hamilton. He would have loved that progression with McLaren. And this season, he will be loving it. But of course, that's not what we're here to talk about. We're talking about him moving forward. And I think the thing that he will be sitting on his, he'll be sitting not right, is am I going to miss? It's kind of like missing the wonder years of your child, growing up and progressing, or, something like that, Will he be thinking he's missing out on these special years at McLaren? They're going to Mercedes in 2021. They're going to use back to McLaren Mercedes in 2021, the year that, of course, he leaves. So this will be his last year, and, of course, the year with Renault Power. Will that be the year that McLaren turns around? It might be. It's looking promising. Of course, they've had 3 amazing races in Austria, Styria and Hungary, heading for a great race in Britain. Of course, I predicted that Lando would get on the podium, and nevertheless, both drivers at McLaren will have a good race. So is he going to miss out on that McLaren? Probably. Is he going to miss out on that movement? It's a shame, because if he put in all this effort to get McLaren into the top field, the top rankings, and then he goes to Ferrari, and let's say he has to start all over again. They go back to the midfield again, like what you said in the news. They might not get wins for, I think it's 2022, 2023. Matteo Binotto came out honestly and said, I'm going to be honest here. We're not having our heads in the clouds. We're not that good at the moment. Is he going to miss out, and is he going to start again? And I think that's the thing that I'm thinking with Carlos Sainz. It's not so much the Ferrari move that'll be hindering on him. It'll be the leaving McLaren, because they are set to have a good season, and this is a benchmark for the seasons ahead. So Jordan, of course, it's your team. That's my view, that the Ferrari move, he'll be worried, but really there's nothing much you can do about it. He moves to the team, they're in a midfield position. He moves to the team, they're in a top field position. Of course, he's already got Charles Leclerc to deal with. Obviously, looks like he is a stronger driver, more implemented, first team driver, first place driver, definitely in the Scuderia. But my view is that McLaren is going to be where he'll be regretting it. He'll be regretting the movement and what he's done with the team. And he would I think he would give anything, a bit like what Fernando did. He would have given anything to be part of the McLaren getting back to fame moment. And he might be even thinking, he doesn't seem like a jealous type, but he might even be thinking like, oh God, Lando, and even Daniel Ricciardo is going to come in at the correct time. What do you think on McLaren? Of course, team that's progressing, you must be absolutely loving that, of course. Will Carlos be thinking, I'm not going to be part of that? And McLaren are set to be stronger than ever in next year, and maybe in 2 or 3 years' time, back at the front, and possibly even ahead of Ferrari, which of course they have been. Go back 10 years, they were ahead of Ferrari, ish, back then. So, is that what's weighing on Carlos's mind?
I think it looks like he is leaving at the wrong time, essentially, because McLaren are on the rise at the moment. They're doing really, really well. Or they did well last season. They're doing okay this season. And then the next season, they've got the new Mercedes engine coming in, which arguably is the best engine on the grid. So, yeah, it looks like Carlos Sainz is making a big mistake. But ultimately, I don't think McLaren will make some sort of progress next season. They could move a bit further up the grid, but not a lot is going to be changing on the cars. McLaren are going to be making some alterations on their car just so that the chassis, because with there being a chassis freeze, just so that their car can fit in the Mercedes engine, because the chassis will be fitted around the Renault engine. So if you go to put the Mercedes engine into the back of it, it's not going to fit. So obviously the FIA will be monitoring that very closely to make sure that McLaren make the correct changes. Now this could either be a really good move, and McLaren could be, even further up the grid and maybe possibly challenging for podiums every single race, or it might not work next season because they might have the aero or anything might be bad. The car may be unbalanced, or they might change something that they shouldn't have. Again, with the restructuring of the rear, so that's that element of we don't know what's going to happen. 2022, that's going to be a key year for McLaren as well, because obviously they will be integrating the new car, the new chassis around the Mercedes engine for 2022, with of course the new regulations. So that's when we're going to see a clear indication, not just McLaren but other teams as well, as to where they're going to be. But I think, but also as well, come back on the Ferrari side, I think maybe Sainz is going, maybe I would like to be here for the Mercedes era, but ultimately he's going to Ferrari. Forget about everything what they're going through at the moment. He's going to Ferrari. He's going to be driving for Ferrari, and not many drivers can say that they've done that. You know what I mean? And whether you're like a multiple world champion, or whether you're just sitting at the back, ultimately you want to drive for Ferrari, and some drivers don't even get to do that. So for Carlos Sainz, it's a brilliant opportunity, and I think with that with their Ferrari's honesty coming forward, I think it's like a relief for Carlos Sainz knowing that, well, if I don't deliver next season because of the car, there's going to be no real pressure. Because all of a sudden, right, if Ferrari didn't say anything from this week, and then we go to next season, and then Carlos Sainz is about a second and a half off the pace to the Mercedes, possibly to the Red Bulls, and maybe not as quick as Charles Leclerc, then ultimately straight away people are going to be going, he's made a mistake, he's not that good, he can't handle the pressure. Because you know how harsh the F1 media can be. Some of them will go, yeah, we understand, but some of them will not be. So we now know, well, we kind of already knew this, but from Ferrari it's more reassuring that we know that the car next year isn't going to be that good, power-wise and chassis-wise. So we know that if Carlos Sainz isn't on the pace to where a Ferrari should be, then we're going to go, yeah, all right, fair enough. But 2022, that's going to be the year. That's going to be the year that Ferrari need to get the act together. It's a brand new regulation season. They need to build that car. They need to do a really good job to it. Build a one for Charles. Because let's face it, Charles is going to be the number one driver. He is. He's Ferrari's golden boy, essentially. Carlos Sainz, is he going to be claimed number two? Possibly not. They might let them fight, which I want to see happen. But if Charles is out of the race, or he has a problem for whatever reason, then Ferrari will be relying on Carlos Sainz to be able to go and finish the job, get the points, and ultimately that's what hopefully he's going to be able to do. As well, going to Ferrari, let's not forget that Ferrari are a works team. They get their engine, they get everything sourced, they make everything themselves and put it onto their car. It's all theirs. So, and that is again reassuring that you've got the best possible equipment at your disposal. Unless, like, at this present time, he's at McLaren, it's a customer team. So obviously they've got Renault engines, they've probably got other Renault parts, gearboxes, I would think. I don't know if McLaren build it themselves, I don't think they do. But, or when they go to Mercedes next season, of course, then they'll have Mercedes parts. But still, though, the car isn't a Mercedes, so it's not going to interjunction very, very well. But a Ferrari, everything's going to balance out all together. It's just Carlos Sainz needs that trust to go on and for Ferrari to go on to build at least a decent car anyway. But coming into the season, we knew that Ferrari had troubles because in testing the car didn't look good. The car was well off the pace. Last season it looked quick. It looked the quickest of the lot. But then when it got to the real racing, the car didn't look that good. This season in testing, the car was well off the pace. It didn't look quick, looked slow. And we were like, sandbagging all day of the week. Rolls into the season, and we were like, no, you couldn't have been any further away from sandbagging for this. But before the season even started, Carlos Sainz signed on the dotted line because it's Ferrari and he wants to be part of that team. But the state Ferrari are in, like I said, it is a mess. So the next question to you, Lyle, is if Ferrari were a bog standard midfield, Ferrari were midfield team, which essentially they are now. and of course they're attracting new drivers and stuff like that. Actually, you know what, let's forget about Ferrari for a bit. Let's just say that this is a bog standard team in the midfield. They're doing okay. They've had some good seasons, they've had some bad seasons, but ultimately the flatlining really, and progress isn't really going that well, and it, similar to what Ferrari are going through. If another team had offered the same salary, the same promises, the same, like, okay, we're gonna move forward, we're gonna make progress. We want to rely on you, and we want your skills to be able to drag this car back to the front of the grid or to the front of the grid. If Carlos Sainz was offered all that and it wasn't Ferrari, do you think he would have left McLaren to go to that team? What do you think?
No, I don't think. To me, I think Carlos Sainz had a home at McLaren, and he was very happy. I think that he had found, because as I just started there and said, he went from Toro Rosso to Renault. It seemed like Carlos wasn't really he wasn't sure what he wanted to do, and also Formula One wasn't sure what he wanted to do. I mean, he went on loan to Renault. It's like being like a footballer. I remember Joe Hart, for example, as an example. He was Manchester City and England goalkeeper, put on loan, and then he went from like Burnley to Italy. Then he was released from Burnley the other day, and you're not really sure what you're going to do. You kind of had a bit of a loose end, and they did that with Karius as well, the Liverpool goalkeeper, when he messed up in the Champions League. So it's a little bit like that with Carlos, and he found a home at McLaren. He had a great teammate in Lando Norris. The team was ran well with Zach Brown, Andreas Seidel, making improvements with the Renault engine, and just everything was improving at McLaren. Really, the most improved team from last year, you could really have said. I don't know if we gave that award or anything in our Christmas special, but really it should have been the most, the most improved team. McLaren were really, really good. Also as well, I think in terms of the number one, number two status, Carlos Sainz most likely had number one at McLaren. Lando Norris coming in, British driver, younger driver. Thankfully, the team didn't look at him and say it's all about him, it's all number one. But also, they didn't look at Carlos Sainz and say it's all number one, it's all number one. Really, McLaren were in one of the only teams, they weren't a top field team, but they were midfield breaking into the top team. They were a little bit in kind of like the squiggly lines of the championship. The promoted, like the Brentford at the moment, and the Fulham Cardiff. Don't tell us the score, we don't know, it's playing tonight. I want Brentford to get through though. I want them to get to the Champions League. Yet another away chance for me if we allow fans in. Obviously being in West London, not too far from where I'm going to be at uni. So yeah, anyways, getting with that. And what I meant is like McLaren were a very unique team. But in that way, they were probably one of the only teams on the grid in terms of fighting for points and podiums that actually allowed their drivers to fight, and fight quite neatly as well. So obviously, again, like Jordan, you were saying there about, obviously Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz, that expect them to fight, or, maybe the team are about allowing them. But again, Ferrari last year were having those problems. They had multi-21 problems. I remember China, Russia. The team were not really intervening, and when they did, they were intervening in the incorrect way. Sebastian and Charles, they weren't really. They didn't know. They didn't really understand. Drivers battling each other, which is weird. Obviously, one of the most oldest teams, and it was kind of a mess. And we've already said, Russia. That's where they lost the win. I think they were 1-2. Obviously, before Sebastian retired, which obviously was unfortunate. But before that, they were 1-2. Then Mercedes came through, and again China as well. They looked like they had a good chance in that race to obviously take the win off Lewis Hamilton. But again, they bottled it, and then Mercedes, along with that double pit stop, made an incredible race. And Ferrari have been like that for a long time, and so have Red Bull, and so have Mercedes, and McLaren are one of the only teams to let their drivers fight neatly. If anything, actually, it's not even about fighting, it's just racing. It's letting whatever happens on track happen on track. It's like what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, what happens on the track stays on the track. And in that way, you already know Lando is a skilled driver. You already know Carlos is a skilled driver. The team doesn't have to intervene, or when they do it in the best way possible. They allow their drivers to fight. They allow their drivers to wheel-to-wheel action, overtake each other, blah, blah, blah. Just on-track things. And they were one of the best teams to do that. And obviously that's what I've just said there. McLaren, definitely one of the best teams of last year, if not the best. That's one of the reasons why I think Carlos would love to stay. And in your scenario, Jordan, definitely he would stay at McLaren. He would see the team as, firstly, making progress, but obviously he doesn't know too much about the future. Wants to be a part of the movement, got a good teammate, and the team is treating them both like they're part of the team. They're working with the team, like, those two are working really together, which again, in Formula One terms, doesn't really happen very much. Teammates are kind of on the opposite side of the garage, and that's how it stays. It's quite rare actually to get two teammates who work with each other but also race in one, separate results, but will basically do a lot. 90% of their work will be for the team and 10% will be for themselves or whatever. I think he found a really good team, and he'd be happy at McLaren, and he definitely was. If it was a team that was midfield, I don't know if we're doing like a My Team F1 2020. Let's say, I don't know who's midfield. Renault. Let's say Renault. Obviously, let's take out the fact, Carlos drove for Renault in 2018. Let's take out that factor for now. Would he go there? No, not at all. Just mainly because of that reason. It's a brand new team. He didn't seem like he needed a new team. I think he was very happy at McLaren, and I really, really do. But obviously it's Ferrari. That's the main thing why he went there. It's because it's Ferrari. Now, of course, switching it around, if it was Williams, for example, obviously a team who is as old as Ferrari, is as successful as Ferrari, many multiple drivers and constructors over the years. Of course, if they offered him a contract now, he wouldn't take it because obviously they're at the back. But go back Williams 10 years ago, or even at the start of the V6 when they were showing improvement, there's a possibility, because again, you've got that name, that prestigiousness. Even at the start of the 21st century, you just had Damon Hill and Jacques Villeneuve as world champion. The chance to go to Williams, even though they looked like they were declining, and of course it was coming up all Ferrari, and Williams looked like they were slipping down. I think they only got something like one win in the 21st century in 2004 before Pastor Maldonado matched it 8 years later. So again, it might not have been the best move then, but you probably would have gone to Williams because of the team and the prestigiousness and the heritage. It's kind of like the football equation. Would you play for would you play for Brentford, for example? Would you play for Norwich, or a midfield, a lower down Premier League team or a Championship team where you would be in the first team, or would you play for Liverpool and be on the bench and possibly get a game? You might play 5 minutes at the end. You might come in on added time. What would you do? Would you be a big fish? Would you be a small fish in a big pond? Would you play for Liverpool and be on the bench, or would you play for Brentford in the actual team and probably play all 90 minutes? It's kind of like that equation. What do you want? What did Carlos want to be a part of? What do you want to be a part of? Do you want to be linked with something special? Or do you want to be in a team that's not really known and not a special thing, but be a big commodity in that team? And I think Carlos would have been happy to be at McLaren and be a big part of McLaren because they needed him to be at the team. But obviously it's Ferrari. It's really, the name Ferrari is bigger than Formula One itself in some ways. And I think anyone who gets that opportunity to go, even if you are a Lewis fan, even if you hate Ferrari, I can't imagine you would be, but even if you thought you wouldn't go, you probably would. You most likely would, because it's Ferrari. It's the dream that we all have. And as I say, as we've said throughout the year, John, it is Formula One's team. So yes, obviously your scenario there, I picked Renault, but yeah, midfield team, I would say no, definitely not.
Yeah.
What for Carlos Sainz, if it wasn't Ferrari, would he have gone? And really, in that what I've just said there, he was at McLaren, a team that really needed him. Is that more important than going to a big field team or a team with like a bigger name and just kind of being like a so-so driver? What do you think?
I just think it just really depends on the situation in hand, because ultimately, Carlos Sainz was never at risk of losing his seat at McLaren. It was just a case of Ferrari came calling, and ultimately you don't decline that. If, for instance, Carlos Sainz was going to be leaving and there was he didn't have any seat for next season officially, then he would probably go in talks with Renault and probably sign them, maybe even Williams to a certain degree. But really, you've got to really think about the Williams name, because it's like, the Williams name is great, but would you sign just because of the name in the same way you would sign because it's Ferrari? You've got to there's got to be a line between the name and the progress that the team's going in. So I think it would just be a case of desperation whether it would be if he would go off to another team. But ultimately, he was at McLaren, he was secure, Ferrari came calling, and off he went. So I would say, if he was at McLaren, then if someone else came calling for him, I would probably say he wouldn't take it, because McLaren, it's a very secure team, it's a happy team, it's a good team, a team that's on the rise. So so it's going to be it's going to be interesting to see how Carlos Sainz fares out at Ferrari and stuff, and it's going to be rather interesting how he gets along with, of course, Charles Leclerc, when he gets to Ferrari, whether it's going to be pushing at the front of the grid. But like I said before, 2022 it's going to be a key year, not just for Sainz, but for Charles Leclerc as well. That's going to be a year of, can Charles actually battle for a title with Carlos Sainz helping him as a teammate, and can Carlos Sainz be that driver to challenge Charles Leclerc, to push Charles Leclerc even further, to then warrant getting constructors' points to finish ahead of the likes of Red Bull, even possibly challenging the Mercedes or whoever is where when the new regulations when they come into play. It depends who is going to be where at that given point, because Aston Martin, they're going to be a team that will probably be up there, and maybe some other teams that aren't on the grid as of yet. So maybe maybe they could be coming into force at some point. But I think as well, it's really to kind of cap it off. Really, Carlos Sainz going to Ferrari, it is a big statement for him, and to say that, right, okay, I am trustworthy in the team, I'm trustworthy in myself, that I can be a driver too. It is a risk. I would say it's a risk for Carlos Sainz as well, because ultimately this could either go really, really well or really, really badly. And to be fair, he doesn't want to really be sitting in the midfield throughout the entire of his career, because he's worked this hard to get to where he is. He's going to Ferrari. That's the dream. That's the dream job. That's the dream move. He doesn't want to be going, Ferrari, is it? He doesn't want to be sitting on doubts. He wants to go, right, let's go for it. Let's do this. And let's take risks, because he doesn't want, like I say, he doesn't want to be doubting it and go, sitting there in the next 50, 60 years and going, I wish I drove for Ferrari. You don't want to be living with regret in F1. You've worked hard. You've been there. You just need to make the most of it, because you're not going to be there forever. So he's made the move. He signed on the dotted line, and here we go, and see how Carlos Sainz does at Ferrari in 2021. But how is he going to do in 2021? That's like the final part of the quest. That's the final part of this debate. How is he going to be doing? What's it going to be like against Charles Leclerc? Now, of course, this is just speculation, because we haven't seen them wheel to wheel in the same car. It's going to be interesting. People could say, well, Charles Leclerc will whitewash him, he'll dominate him. And others would say, maybe Carlos Sainz will be a lot closer than what people are anticipating. Because Carlos Sainz is not a bad driver in the slightest. He's a really good driver. World champion material? Don't know that yet, but certainly given the correct car, maybe, just maybe, he can go all the way, because it's totally different being that championship mentality driving compared to what it is if you're battling for, let's say, P6, or even, to try and finish in the top 10, or even finish ahead of your teammate in the standings. So it's going to be interesting to see how those two come together. So Carlos Sainz at Ferrari, how is he going to be doing? What to expect? What to expect from him in 2021? Lyle, let's start with your answer. What do you think? Carlos Sainz into Ferrari 2021. The car, of course, we know isn't going to be that good. Do you honestly believe he can match Charles Leclerc, be on the same pace as Charles Leclerc? Do you think he'll be quicker than Charles? Do you think he'll be slower than Charles? Where are you standing with that?
Well, Charles Leclerc definitely is going to be the leader at Ferrari, definitely. Carlos, his move, he's not underrated, he's not overrated. I think it's just kind of, at the moment, it's meh, as you would say. It's meh. We don't really understand how he's going to do, and as you said there, it's all going to be, of course, speculation. We don't know how bad or good the car's going to be. Again, I like to look on the bright side. I like to think, Ferrari are not going to be as bad as people think, and they are going to be fighting for wins. I know that Matteo Binotto's come out and said that the car isn't as good, but maybe that's just a little bit of self-doubt. You know what I mean? Like, you've had one bad result, so you're going to beat yourself up about the rest. Maybe that's just a little bit self-doubt. Maybe he's looking on the dark side. Hopefully Ferrari are a little bit better next year, because obviously you need Ferrari to win. And I remember even when I made that NFL video all the way back in the year, if you can remember that far, my God, it only feels like yesterday. I said, you almost need Ferrari to win, even if you don't support them, you almost need them. As I say, the Formula One's team. So, again, we don't really know, and obviously, as John said there, we haven't seen them wheel-to-wheel racing. I think Charles definitely is going to be the leader, the person who they're pushing for the race wins. From what I can see from Carlos, definitely consistent, a good team player. I think he's there to help Ferrari. And again, I know that, in Formula One, it's very strange to find the balance of, are you a team player? And do you want results yourself? You obviously both need those things. The people who pay your wages are the team, so you need to fight for them. But of course, also you need to be very much selfish, and you need to fight for yourself. And of course, many, many drivers across the board, even from Lewis to Michael to Ayrton to Alan, to they've all had team problems, battles, and arguments, it obviously happens in Formula. If you go through Formula 1, you don't have an argument. You don't have like these problems. You're not even a Formula 1 driver. Like, if you don't go that far for your team to fire you or to have a go at you for, you know, disobeying team orders or fighting with your teammate, then you may as well not even be there, because you're definitely not going to do anything well in the sport. Anyways, I think he is going to be a team player from what we've seen at McLaren. I think he's going to be there to help Ferrari. But that being said, though, he's definitely not going to be a pushover. He's definitely going to assert himself against Charles Leclerc. Are we going to see an explosive season? No, we're not. What I'm getting from Carlos is he's not going to battle Alan. He's going to battle Alan. He's not going to battle Charles straight away. You know, Charles is going to be the guy there. And to be honest, Charles, I think, even though he is a smiley, happy guy and he got on with Sebastian, and really he didn't even really pose a threat to Sebastian. He kind of quietly just beat him on track, and, you know, quietly let the results speak for himself. You know, his four pole positions, you know, in the second part of the season, let those speak for themselves. And of course, there's 2 race wins, especially in Monza, which Seb would have been really annoyed at doing. I think Shaw will definitely be there and say, right, okay, I've been at the team now. I haven't beaten Sebastian, but I've kind of pushed him out. I'm successful in what I've meant to do, and I'm going to assert myself against my new teammate. I don't think they're going to have any argument. I do see them getting on. And to be honest, Jordan, I think, you know, last thing we said, Ferrari aren't going to be that good. And obviously the car performance is very much, it's over 50% in Formula 1. Obviously, it's a lot of it is the car performance over the driver, that's just how it works. But for a constructor, a lot of it is the team performance, and how the drivers get on with each other. And as I said there, you know, are they both pulling in the right direction, or are they just playing tug of war with each other? Ergo, the team is going to go nowhere, like a rope would in a fair match of tug of war. If they're pulling in the right direction, like we've seen with Carlos and Lando at McLaren last year, and even this year, that's good. Yeah. That's pulling the team in the right direction. Of course, that's why we said McLaren one of the best teams of last year. And to be honest, they've started out like they are the team of the season this year, even though we're only 3 races in, heading into round 4. And if Charles and Carlos can get on, I reckon that's half the battle done. They'll get on, they'll pull in the right direction. Yes, they'll want results for themselves, but they'll pull Ferrari constructor-wise to what they need them to be. And I see next year, the next few years, being quite good at Ferrari. As I say, you know, I'm not going completely off what Matteo said. I do think like the car will be okay. And yeah, I actually see, do you know what? I actually see it being better than it has been in the last few years. Not last few years, because it hasn't been Charles. This year, last year, and well, really even this year. This year the car hasn't been good. But you've got to say, are Sebastian and Charles pulling in the right direction? After we saw that crash in Styria, it doesn't look like they are. It does not look like they have a good relationship anymore. I just see Carlos and Charles, 2 youngish guys who both have a long career ahead of them, getting on well. Carlos respects Charles, you know, for being at the team. I assume Charles will respect Carlos, and I see them getting on well. So my opinion, Jordan, is that he will do well. And Carlos will be there. He won't expect much. He won't have a reputation. As I say, he won't have much pressure on him. I don't think he's putting much pressure on himself. In terms of results, don't really know what he's going to do. But I think he's going there to just pull Ferrari in the right direction, because he will know how badly Ferrari are going right now. And he will know that their reputation is not going to be very good. So he'll go there and he'll think, I tell you what, like I said at the start about being part of McLaren movement, that's not happening. But the movement I can be part of is the Ferrari movement. The Ferrari movement of, you know what, scrap my season for a season or 2. Scrap my results. I don't really care as much. I'm going to care about pulling the team forward. To be honest, a Jenson Button mentality. Jenson Button at McLaren, obviously he wanted to do well. Obviously he wanted to beat Lewis. But I feel like after 2009 he moved to McLaren. I feel like really for the time he was there against Lewis, he was there to obviously battle Lewis, but do the team first, get the team results first, and then by turn hope that his results will be there, secondly, to obviously beat Lewis. I feel like that's what Carlos will do next year. And I do see Ferrari having a good season. So yes, Carlos, I think he'll be there to help the team and basically get on with Charles and pull them forward, which is definitely what they need to do. So yes, Jordan, how do you see Ferrari doing? And how do you see Carlos doing? Is he going to give Charles a hard time? Or as I say, is he going to get on with him? What do you think?
I think it could be a lot closer than maybe what people are anticipating, because ultimately we're not going to know until, of course, those two are sat in the same car. But we know that Ferrari, they're not going to be battling for race wins or championships, next season. Maybe they could improve a little bit, but ultimately it's going to be 2022. That's going to be the year where we're going to go, right, okay, come on Ferrari, this is going to be your year. So, and maybe, I think Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc, I think, of course, they need to work well together because Ferrari they need all the team working. They need everyone singing off the same hymn sheet, essentially, to push the team forward, to get them back to where they want to be. Because there's something, deep down, there's something wrong at Ferrari. And, you don't have to be a genius to see this because, they've brought in Fernando Alonso, they've brought in Sebastian Vettel, and like I said at the start, nothing. None of them have won championships. No constructors. Why is that? They lose their momentum. They lose. Something goes wrong, and then that's it. They're just heads down and forget it all. And it's just a downward spiral. And you look at teams like Mercedes, for instance. They're like going steadily along. All of a sudden, double DNF. Oh, there's a problem. Oh dear, what we're gonna do next week? 1-2 pole position, bang. Grand slam for Lewis, and not like nothing ever happened. Yet Ferrari, they do really, really well. They hit that stumbling block, and it's so hard to recover. And then that's when you have altercations between the two drivers sometimes. And then, of course, we're seeing Charles Leclerc and Vettel run into each other at Brazil. That was cleared up quite quickly. Then you had the problem in the steering Grand Prix. Charles Leclerc claimed responsibility for that, which is okay, fair enough. That was honest. Mistake from Charles as well, but Seb as well. He made a couple of mistakes as well. So, one big mistake. He spun into the guy that was actually going to be replacing him next season. But like I said, they all need to be working together to get the car better, essentially, and to give back enough data and enough analysis to hopefully get the car back onto winning ways and into a winning mentality in 2022. But that's going to be really interesting to see how that actually goes. So, but I think final part really, let's answer this question just real quickly. Is Carlos Sainz regretting that move to Ferrari? Yes or no? Lyle, yes or no? Ultimately, big question. That's a big question of the episode. Yes or no? Is he regretting it right now?
No, he's not. Ferrari is the name, and it's a risk. It's a risk. Daniel Ricciardo took risks. Lewis took risks. But no, I think that he's happy, and I think that if he sees Ferrari really fall off the pace and get beaten by Williams, they'll be like, "Oh my god, what the hell have I done?"
Wow, that is bad.
But at the moment, no, I think he's happy. Very much like playing for Liverpool. You're on the bench, but you're playing for Liverpool. I think he's happy at Ferrari. What do you think? Did he want to be at McLaren still, or no? Is he happy for next year?
Oh no, I don't think he's regretting it. Not one bit. I really don't. Despite Ferrari going through the phases, but I've said this before. If Ferrari were the slowest team on the grid and they come calling, you don't turn it down.
No,
you really don't. You honestly don't.
Yeah.
But of course we probably will be seeing the whole, well, Ferrari's a good team, they've got success and blah 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 blah, and we'll see all them headlines from the drivers that will be signing for them. But I think, even though that it's very nice and warm at McLaren, you're not going to be labelled as a driver, just by sitting in the comfy seat all the time and just plodding along nicely. You have to take risks. Lewis Hamilton did that. He could have sat in McLaren and been number one forever, but he wouldn't have been as successful as what he is now. He took a big risk in 2013 by going to Mercedes, because Mercedes were a midfield team. They were going into a brand new era, of course, a brand new regulation change in 2014. And Carlos Sainz is doing a similar sort of thing. He's at McLaren at the moment. He's going to Ferrari, a team that isn't really, like we all know, they aren't doing that well. A year before a big regulation change.
Thing is, Jordan, it's quite funny actually, because like every driver we're going to see now moving teams. So I'll just say, I just mentioned there Daniel Ricciardo. We're always going to mention Lewis, and we're always going to compare it to Lewis.
Yeah,
and like. I mean, that is a 1 in a million.
In fact, as well, another guy who took a risk was Michael Schumacher when he signed for Ferrari in 1995. Yeah. I mean, they were awful. They were nowhere. Within 5 years, he's world champion.
Yeah.
So you could almost, Schumacher took a risk. Lewis took a risk.
The greats took a risk.
Exactly, you've got to take a risk. Like I said before, you can't just be all like, I'll sit here, it's very very nice and comfy. You've got to be out there. You've got to take risks to be a racing driver. That's what it takes. He would have took risks in the lower categories, and of course he's going to be taking risks in the big world of Formula One. That's what he's ultimately going to have to do. Is it going to pay off? we'll have to wait and see about that. It's going to be rather interesting to see. But yeah, I think we're on the same page with this one. No, he won't be regretting it. But as always, guys, let us know your opinions in the comment section below. Is Carlos Sainz regretting that move to Ferrari? Should he be staying at McLaren? Should he be going to Ferrari? Or should he be going elsewhere? But anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching as always. And of course, this weekend we are back with Formula 1. Really enjoying it. The British Grand Prix this week. If you haven't already, go and check out our race preview. Go and leave your predictions in there, your top 3 and fastest lap to enter in our prediction league, which is going to be rather interesting as well. And of course, tomorrow is the big one, the Grand Prix. There's at the British Grand Prix, and of course, there's Muppet right next to me is going to be doing the live stream straight after the Grand Prix. So go make sure that you watch it and give your thoughts about the Grand Prix. What you thought? Is Lewis Hamilton going to make it 7 British Grand Prix, or is it going to be somebody else? But anyways, guys, thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching. If you're new around here, then please like and subscribe as always. And until next time, guys, we'll see you later.
See you later, guys.